Mercedes came into the 2022 Brazilian Grand Prix weekend expecting to struggle just a tad because unlike in Mexico where they actually came very close to a race win, they won't have the advantage of a high altitude circuit to the degree that Mexico was, because again remember the Sao Paulo Interlagos circuit is also on a slight altitude, but again not as much as the Mexico circuit, so therefore there weren't going to be as many gains to be made. However, thanks to a wonderful showing in the sprint race and of course a bad showing by Red Bulls and Max Verstappen in particular, the Mercedes cars are now actually in with a chance of getting that all elusive first victory of the 2022 season and extending a streak that has been ongoing since 2012. That is a streak of winning at least one race per season at any given particular track. Now, why is it that that's the case in this particular circuit, considering they were expecting that they would struggle? Well, let's just take a quick look at what exactly transpired to begin with. Now, in the sprint race, which was held after qualifying on Friday, because that was what determined the grid for, of course, the sprint race. George Russell ended up taking first place, which means that this is the first race win of any kind that he's had in Formula One, because he never won a Grand Prix race but has now won a sprint. And Lewis Hamilton was classified second, and he was classified second because he finished third. But Carlos Sainz, who of the Ferrari team, who finished second, took a 5-place grid penalty, which meant that Hamilton was promoted up to second, which means that the Mercedes will be getting their first 1-2 start of the season. Feels weird saying it now, considering the season is over. The Drivers' Championship has been decided. The Constructors' Championship been decided, yet better late than never, especially if you're a Mercedes fan. But one of the reasons that they were helped out to some degree was because Max Verstappen only ended up getting fourth fastest, thanks to, of course, a poor tire strategy, and also he ended up getting into a bit of a crash with Carlos Sainz, and that ended up making him lose some performance. The third thing that has to be noted, what did I say, when it comes to Verstappen having a troubled race, was due to the fact that he chose to start on the medium tires, whereas pretty much everyone else chose to start on the softs. There were very few drivers who chose the mediums. The ones who did, including Verstappen, struggled because they weren't able to get as much temperature in, they weren't able to get the kind of grip that's needed, and that is perhaps key when it comes to analyzing what it is that went so right for Mercedes. Now, they were quicker than anticipated as well, and that is something that is important, because afterwards Verstappen said that, look, the Mercedes just seemed so much quicker than us through the weekend, and it's not just down to tires. That was according to Verstappen himself, and that in itself was an added bonus, because for the most part this season the Mercedes has been comfortably the third quickest car on the grid. It would alternate between the Red Bulls and the Ferraris through the weekend. This time around, however, Mercedes do look like they're at least up there with the cars in terms of pure pace. That is good news. But of course, the other thing that has to be mentioned, the second point, is that the car did really well on the softer tires than the medium tires. Again, most teams were expecting that the soft tire would do better of course, during the sprint, because again, you remember, it's a short duration. You can push the soft tires to the limit, and Brazil hasn't exactly been very hot this time of the year. So in that sense, the soft was the way to go, and that was exactly what happened with the Mercedes. They were good on the soft, and to also be fair, their cars are not as harsh on their tires as others are. Whereas Verstappen said afterwards that we were eating through the tires. The Mercedes, generally speaking, can be a little soft on its tires, and that helped considerably. So Red Bull, as I mentioned before, they started on the medium. It was a tire gamble that did not work at all, and it actually ends up seeing them start in a very poor position, because Verstappen is only fourth, and so that is a bit unfortunate in that regard. So it's not really, in fact, sorry, he's third, so it's a bit unfortunate in that regard. And especially if this pace deficit keeps up, it means he's probably not going to be adding to his record tally of race wins in a single season. Not that the Mercedes team will be caring too much about that. They are going to be caring about actually getting that first race win of the season. If it happens that Mercedes don't actually get that race win, it'll be the first time since the 2011 season that they've not got a single race win through the season. That is a long time, 11 years to be specific. Since then, Mercedes have, of course, only grown from strength to strength. But as of now, this season has been one of struggle. But there does seem to be a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel, because of course you'd remember they've won no race, but their car, as I was mentioning, has been quicker through this particular season, through this particular campaign, this particular race. It's been much quicker, and that is of course an added bonus. The car wasn't as draggy on the straights as it normally should be, but that means that of course, you know, there will be an advantage for them going into the race. And of course it helps considerably that both Ferrari and Red Bull have run into some degrees of trouble and haven't been quite as fast as it would have been expected for them in Brazil. If that continues on into race, then the Mercedes team should actually be thanking their lucky stars that it have in fact aligned in a way to get them that all-important first win. Because again, remember, it's not just a first win of the season that's at stake for the Mercedes. They're also fighting for second spot in that Constructors' Championship, which would of course guarantee them more prize money from the FIA, because it's determined on how high you finish in the Constructors' Championship. Whether or not they can get there, something we'll only know once it's race time, because again, things can change very, very quickly. You can come up with new setup ideas and things like that might get the other teams some pace. But as of now, this is easily the best position that Mercedes have found themselves in to win a race all through the season. Do you think Mercedes can actually get that race win? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, tap the bell icon, and of course follow us on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook as well. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, I've been Shane Rice, and I hope to see you with us through the day. But for now,